Hahn-Tech Premium Trading Tools, professional quality tools designed to sharpen your edges. Hi guys, welcome to the final video in our series for the Hahn-Tech Premium Volume Profile Indicator as well as the TPO Profile Indicator for Thinkorswim. I want to remind you guys of where we are at in the playlist. So here is the list of videos in this playlist, and we are currently on the last video. If you're watching them in the order that I recommend, we're going to be covering the scan and the watch list columns, basically showing you how you can streamline your workflow by combining the signals from the scans as well as the readout from the watch list columns. Okay, and the first category of instruments we're going to be covering are indexes. After we get done with indexes, we're going to be covering Forex, and once we complete the Forex, then we'll cover the stocks. And the stocks portion of this video will take up a majority of the time in the video. We're only going to briefly cover the indexes and the Forex, and the majority of our time will be spent on the stocks. And once again, just a reminder, for the indexes and for the Forex, those are instruments that do not have volume data attached. So we cannot use the volume profile indicator. We have to use the TPO profile indicator. So these are two companion studies that we offer on our website. So at this point in time, I'm assuming that you have already viewed the previous videos in this series, so you understand the differences between the volume profile and the TPO profile. So what you see on the chart right here is the TPO profile. Let's go ahead and open up the studies, edit studies. So you can see that this is the TPO profile version 4. We'll just open up the settings here so you can kind of get a view on the settings that were being used here. So this is the TPO profile, not the volume profile, okay? Because we're going to be covering indexes and Forex, and those do not include volume data, so we cannot use the volume profile. Does it sound like I'm repeating myself? Yes. What should you take from that? Well, you should take from that that this is very important that you understand the distinction in that you cannot use certain instruments with the volume profile indicator because they don't carry volume data along with them. The TPO profile is designed for strictly the price action alone, so it does not include volume data, it only includes the price. And when we get into the Forex section, there are some rather unique settings that I need to explain because Thinkorswim scans is not as flexible as the charts and the watch list columns in regard to selecting your price type. That's enough for the introduction. Let's go ahead and dive right in. We'll go ahead and hit cancel here. You can see I've got some scan results, and what I'm doing is I'm scanning in public category of indices. Okay, that's how I got here. So you go to scan in, select public F through N, and then navigate down to indices. Okay, if you try to use, for instance, category of all indices, okay, that is going to give you a completely different list than you expect. Trust me, okay? So do not use this as your top level filter when you're scanning for indices. If you want to see scans that are based upon this list of indices right here that you see here, okay, then what you must do for the top level filter of the scan is you must select public F through N and then go down here to indices and select that. Okay, you select that as your top level filter, and then intersect with must be set to none. If you set this to stocks or anything related to stocks, it's going to block everything out. Let's go ahead and take a look at these scan results. You can see we've got 3 that are inside the value area, and you can see if I move this over just a little bit, you can see our 5th column here is showing the bearish bullish condition. The 4th column here is got some problems with the Forex and the indices. And I'll show you what I just did to correct that. All I had to do was edit the formula, and we went over here and unchecked the box for include extended hours trading session. And I just double checked those settings on all the other columns, and they all have the extended hours unchecked as of now. Okay, and you can see here that we've got the first example up here is actually the last one in the results list, UTY, inside value area. And you can see that it has bearish dot on the final candle. So that is the conditions that we see present on the chart. So we can go ahead and take a look at some of these others. You can see that's within the value area. Now let me go ahead and refresh your memory here. For the TPO profile, the colors are just slightly different. Okay, the white dashed areas, those are the value area high and low. Okay, and then the yellow dashed area, that is the point of control. And this kind of violet colored shading right here, that is the unbreached point of control for that line, and that will continue on and extend until it is intersected by price, as in this example over here you can see at 11:15 a.m. Okay, so let's go ahead and pick another signal from the scan. You can see the last one that I ran here was within value area, so let's go ahead and mark that off, and I'll explain these in more detail when we get to the stocks section of this video, so stick with me on that one. And let's go ahead and do some for, let's say we want to find any that are touching the value area high. That might be kind of rare, but at the close of the session we might have had some bullish moves and ending at the value area high. So let's go ahead and hit scan and see if we get any results there. Nothing with that. Let's try another signal, and we'll try the touch value area low. Okay, so we've got one signal there. Let's go ahead and bring that up on the chart. Okay, and that's SPX. That's a very popular one. And so let's take a look at that. Yes, so what we have here is a candle that is touching the value area low. You see that? And we also have in the watch list column a signal of value area resistance. So you can see that in the wedge shape right there as the wick is extending beyond the value area, shaded area there on the bottom, and the close is right now below that shaded area. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that so you can see. Okay, anytime the high of the bar is above the bottom of that shaded area and the close is below the bottom of that shaded area, that is what generates that signal. You can see another one over here. Okay, let's go ahead and try another signal here. So I'll grab this one for above value area. There we are, and we can see that BKX, and that is above the value area entirely. You see that candle is fully above the value area high, which means it is above the value area. Let's take a look at RUT, okay, RUT, and again that is above the value area as defined by these white dashed lines with the shading around them. Okay, now let's move on to another type of scan altogether. This one is going to be for the TPO profile signals. Let's go ahead and open up that code to look at the various signals here. I want to show you the file name that we're using, okay? And then we'll scroll down to the bottom and look at the signals and pick one. One thing very important to keep in mind is that you have all of your settings right here. Make sure all of those settings match what you have applied to your chart as well as the watch list columns. And you can see the different signals that we have available down here. The first one is scan resist value area high. So let's hit OK and then run that scan. Okay, that did not produce any results. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next signal, see if we have any signals for that one. Okay, sometimes these signals are quite rare, and we are working with a very limited number of ticker symbols, so it's not surprising that we're not finding any, but let's keep working at it here. Okay, and we're trying the last and final signal on this particular scan, so let's go ahead and run that. And there we go. So in reality, we only had the one, which we've already reviewed previously, SPX. I'm sure you remember that. With SPX, we had value area low resistance, and we just picked that up using the scan signal that we just selected here. Okay, I think you have the idea now for the scans, and again, like I said, we're going to be covering scans in great detail, much more detail, when we get to the stocks section. So stay tuned for that if any of this is not quite sinking in yet, but I did want to give you guys a chance to review some of these charts. So let's go ahead and open this up a little bit, put some more data on the chart here, and let's click through some of these indices so that you can get a chance to look at these. Let's look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Let's look at the NDX. This one is OEX. XAU, that's gold and silver index. There's transportation. Okay, I don't want to go through all of these. If you have something in particular that you want to view when you want to try to place an order for one of these indicators, just remember to check that box for questions and comments, and you can request current screenshots of specific ticker symbols with various settings that you might want to view before you complete a purchase. Okay, so let's go ahead and conclude the section for the indices and move on to the Forex. And like I said previously, there are some limitations on what we can use for price types, and I will explain that first and then get right into the scan results. Okay, so I've moved things around here a little bit to get ready for the section on the Forex. So let's see, the first thing I want to do is set up the scan in, the top level filter. We're going to scan in and go to category, and we're going to select non-commission pairs. This does not work with commission pairs. I'm really not even certain why they list it as an option as a top level filter. Nothing comes up. So non-commission pairs is what you must select. And if you want to see what those look like, you can load them into a watch list of your own. So you just detach a watch list gadget and you can select the public F through N and then select FX non-commission pairs. Okay, that's how I got to this section here. And if you see these that are highlighted on the watch list column, I'll scroll down here. You got the Aussie US dollar, and you got the Euro US dollar, the British pound, and the US dollar. You see these that are highlighted in blue with little check marks off to the right. Okay, those are the only ones that are really worth a darn for scans. And I'll show you. I'll demonstrate this. Okay, we'll go ahead and I'll select this one on the chart. Okay, so you can see that on the chart. You see all that data. You see how nice and full that is with data. All those candles. That's a full complement of trading. Now, if you go over to one of these others, let's say the Aussie Japanese yen, you see how spotty that is? You barely have a full complement of candles at all. Okay, and you look at this one, you see how spotty that is? You don't have very much data, and if you don't have very much data, look at that. You've got one tick there within the last 3 days. 5 days. There's 5 days on this chart. Okay, so if you click through these, you can see that most of these do not have sufficient data to include in a scan. Don't even try to scan for these. You might be able to get away with scanning for this one. That's the Euro Aussie dollar, but it's not recommended. Look at that. I mean, you really don't have good data, and without good data, you really cannot run a scan. Now, I need to explain something, because some of you might be looking at this saying, well, that's not how my Forex charts look. Well, you got a lot of different choices here. So now we're going to get into the peculiar settings that must be used when you're running scans on Forex. First off, let's go to the chart and we'll examine the price type. We'll go to Forex. It's the tab all the way to the right on the chart settings, and you can see the display price type. You see I have it set to last. That's the only thing that you can use if you're going to be using scans. If you're going to be running scans on Forex, it only has this option. Okay, it only uses this. Now I had to find this by trial and error, and I discovered which one of these could be used for Forex scans, and this is it. Okay, last is the only thing that you can use. Now if you go ahead and cancel this and we look at one of these watch list columns, remember the watch list column must be set up exactly the same as the chart and exactly the same as the scan. Well, we'll go to the watch list column, and you can see that over here in the far right you got FX price type. Okay, that is set to last, and once again you have all these price types that you can select from, but if you want it to match the scan, the only thing that works is to set it to last. The other thing I noticed is that in after hours I have to check this box, even though in the chart setting there is no such option for including extended hours on Forex. So with the watch list column and with the scan, we must check the box to include extended hours trading session. So I'll hit apply and OK for that watch list column. I will now update the rest of those off screen so that I don't tie up a lot of time on the video, but I also want you to see that for the scan itself, I'm checking that box so that that box for the scan is also set to extended hours. Now let's go ahead and look at the settings for the scan, and you might expect to see, just like the watch list column, that over here in the right, oh look at that, there's nothing there. Okay, so as we had on the watch list column, you had the ability to select different price type. Okay, over here FX price type doesn't exist on the scans. Okay, so for the scans it's fixed at the price type of last. That's why your charts and your watch list columns must be set to last in order to match the scan results, and that's the only way that you can run scans on Forex on Thinkorswim at this present time. Okay, and I just got done updating those columns as I explained previously, and I do want to show you this one particular column, the one for the trend igniter signals. Okay, for some reason I have no idea why, I cannot explain why, but if you include extended hours on that watch list column, you get not a number. Okay, you see how that just changed to not a number? So for this particular column, and for some reason only this column, you need to uncheck the box for extended trading session on the Forex. Hit apply and OK, and you can see that we have now a value there. I'm sorry about that. There's some peculiar things about Thinkorswim, and it seems that when it comes to Forex, boy, we've got some severe limitations. Okay, and I do want to update you on the top level filter. During preparation, I decided that all of these ticker symbols that are highlighted on this watch list, what I did is I created a brand new watch list of my own, a custom watch list that I call 04X. So this is a personal watch list that I created. And all I did was copy over all of those tickers that are marked as having sufficient trade volume to be valid for scans. And then I used that instead of what's listed. So you see that 04X right there? I'll show you how to navigate to that. Now you won't have this on yours, okay? You'll have to create your own. But for mine, it will appear when you create one under personal, and then you go down here, and that's where I saved it, okay? So now the scan is set to trigger only on these ticker symbols, okay? Okay, so I'm going to grab this particular scan right here. It's the TPO Profile Value Area. And down here is the list of the signals. Again, we're going to cover these in much more detail when we get to the stocks section of the video. But here is the particular scan signal that we're going to start with, above value area. Let's hit OK and then run the scan. And you can see that shows up in the watch list, above value area. And you can see that we don't have any other signals present in these watch list columns, but we do have a bearish indication on the current bar of the chart. So let's go ahead and load that ticker symbol onto our chart. There we go. And you can see the last bar on the chart indeed is got a red dot to it, and it is above the value area. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that so you can see it. Oh, there it is. It just dipped right below the value area high. Just as I was zooming into that section of the chart, you saw it happen there live right there. And notice that the watch list column immediately updated to show a touch of value area high. So if we ran this scan again, this stock would no longer show up on that because we're searching for above value area high. And while we were loading it onto the chart, it updated and now has a different status. Okay, so let's go ahead and update that scan signal, and let's try the below value area. I'm not sure that we're going to find any signals here, so let's just try it out and see. Nope, we don't have any there. Let's update it again. This time I want to pick within VA, otherwise known as inside the value area. Hit OK and then hit scan. There we go. And you can see the watch list column is updated immediately. And let's pick some of these from that list. We got the Aussie US dollar. You can see that's within the value area. Once again, I'll point those out to you. You can see the white dashed line up here and the white dashed line down here with the little shading around it. Those are the value area high and low, and that candle is totally within that area. And you can see we also have a bearish red dot on that moving average right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the Euro US dollar now, and once again it is within the value area, and we have a green dot, so that corresponds with the watch list columns. Okay, we're going to be covering all of this in tremendous detail when we get to the stocks, which is the next section coming up. I just wanted to give you guys some exposure to the Forex so you understand some of the intricacies that need to be accounted for. For instance, don't forget the price type. You can only use price type of last until Thinkorswim updates their scan tool to allow you to select other price types. But here's something that I will leave you with, okay? If you have, for instance, a Forex pair that has very, very little data, okay, such as this, right? Do you really want to be trading that? Okay, just ask yourself that question, okay? I certainly would not want to be trading that. There's almost no liquidity in that instrument. And if you have your chart set to a different setting, you might not even recognize that there's no trading volume in that instrument whatsoever. Let's go ahead and update this price type for the chart. I just want to show this to you, okay? So let's try to change it to mark and see what happens. Now we get a full complement of candles, okay? You get a full complement of candles there, but there's no trades there, okay? The trades are listed here, okay? So be very, very careful about Forex, okay? For those of you that really know Forex and understand, you probably already know this. You're probably saying, Pete, duh, you're preaching to the choir. Well, there's a lot of people out there that haven't dabbled with Forex yet and might be tempted to. And I want to help people understand that when you pick this price type, it's going to drastically change what appears on the chart. You can see I just changed it to bid, I changed it to ask. And again, when you set it to last, as it is here on the chart that you see now, that's what the scan is using. So if you're going to use scans with Forex, then you're going to have to set it to last. And the other thing that I'll mention is if it's that way for the scans, it's also that way for the watch list columns. So if you want your watch list columns to be up to date and current and match your charts. For instance, you see this signal right here that just appeared on the Euro US dollar, and you see that on the chart right there. All right, that's only because we have everything set up correctly. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now we're going to dive right into the major section of this video where we're going to cover everything in great detail regarding stocks. So I've got a basic scan set up here, and you can see if you look closely, I've got custom 01 through custom 05. So I've got 5 custom columns. I've already preloaded those with the code. If you go ahead and edit the formula there, you can see that this has been loaded during the installation and setup, and I'm using the default settings so far here. And I want to make sure that you understand that for each of these watch list columns, you get to select the time frame that you want to apply. It's very important that you make sure that you take note of that time frame, because you want to make sure, by all means, that the time frame on your custom watch list matches the time frame on your scan, as well as the time frame you've selected for your charts. These settings don't automatically carry over. If you adjust settings on the watch list columns, they don't automatically carry over to the scans. And if you adjust settings on the charts, they don't automatically carry over to either the scan or the watch list columns. So it's a little bit of work to set things up, but if you save your layout and save your custom scans, then it will become a lot easier to navigate and utilize these tools in your workflow. So I've added these custom watch list columns to the scan results section. Okay, that way I don't have to bring in a separate watch list gadget to show you the columns of the scans. And as well, I can show you how the signals that we generate from the scan are displayed in the watch list columns. All right, so we're going to try to stick to the basics here. All right, you've got 5 different watch list columns. That means you also have 5 different scans, because with this tool, we provide a scan for every watch list column. And each scan has got multiple signals. And all of that will become a little bit more clear as we get into the details. So I just wanted to let you know that we're not going to be able to cover every single combination here, because you could imagine if we've got 5 different watch list columns, 5 different scans, and each scan has got multiple different signals, we would be here all week finishing up this video, and we're not going to do that. I just want to give you an idea on how you can operate these and load them onto your scan and view the results and interpret them and mix and match things as needed. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load a custom scan into this study filter here, and then we're going to examine some scan results. Okay, and here you can see I've loaded the scan for the volume profile VA, which is value area, and so that provides multiple scan signals that you can select from. Here's the settings, as we've already demonstrated in a previous video. And when we scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a number of scan signals that are available to select, and I'll show you how to pick from among those scan signals to run your scans. Okay, here is the list of scan signals. You can see we've got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different scan signals, and you can only select one at a time. And the way you switch these, okay, is by moving that little hashtag. Okay, so you erase that hashtag and place that hashtag here. You can only run one at a time, so you just move that little hashtag symbol so that you activate the particular scan that you want to run. Okay, so let's go ahead and undo that change so that we're back to the first scan signal. And this scan signal is going to be looking for candles that are above, fully above the value area. Okay, that means it's going to be the low of the candle has to be above the value area. So we're going to make sure that we change our time frame. Remember, I said we must make sure that the time frame matches what we are using for the watch list columns, which means I need to uncheck this box for include extended hours trading. So we've got a 15-minute time frame selected here. Now let's go ahead and back up to the top here and review our settings. And this is one setting here that we need to update. So I'm going to remove that from the week and change it to day. And that's going to make sure that the settings match what's applied to the watch list column, which I already showed you previously. So all of these settings are the same on the watch list column, so you'll be able to make sure that they're matched. Okay, that's very, very important. If you don't get them matched, you're going to get results that don't line up and you're going to be upset. So make sure you pay attention to these settings and keep them lined up among all of the various tools. Okay, so we'll hit OK, and then we'll hit scan. Okay, and thanks to the magic of video editing, we did not have to wait for that scan to run in the video. It did take a couple of minutes to run, and you can see that we have an error. script execution timeout. Very important that you recognize that. Okay, so you want to be looking for that. If you don't get any results in your scan, you want to look for that error message. What does that tell us? That means we have too many stocks that we're trying to scan with the code. Now, if you've watched my video on Thinkorswim scans beginner to advanced, then you'll understand that we need to adjust the top level filters and maybe even add some pre-filters. So for instance, we have all optionable, and we can further refine that by saying, for instance, a category of all NYSE stocks. That's one way that we can reduce the number of stocks that are hitting the code. And if you want to also select a stock filter, you can take and use the close is greater than, let's say, 5 and a maximum of, let's just say, 100. Okay, and when we hit enter, we can see now that we only have 2,651 matches because of that pre-filter. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit that scan again, and we can see we still got a script execution timeout. It's very important that you understand this, and I'm glad that this is happening. I'm doing this in a particular order so that you understand that the volume profile is a really intense load on the scanner, and so it really doesn't like to have a large number of stocks to work with, so you have to continue to pare things down until you get it to work. So you've got all NYSE stocks, so we're going to further reduce that. Notice now we've got 1,089 matches, and we'll hit scan, and that scan was able to complete. So it'll just take you a little bit of practice and a little bit of trial and error to find out what number of stocks that you are able to work with here on these scans. And again, I said the volume profile, or the TPO profile, is probably one of the most intense scans that we have for Thinkorswim, and it is going to require that you work with a lower number of stocks. So what do we have here? Remember, our scan signal was for above value area, and clearly that is what we have indicated in the watch list column. You can also see that we have a few signals here from the trend igniter column. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at a chart so that you can see how that looks on a chart. Okay, and I've also updated the width of these two columns here, so I've got a little bit more room for the chart to display. And so you can see I've selected it at that ticker symbol there, which was showing a trend igniter bearish signal, as well as a red in the trend status. And you can see over here on the chart, go ahead and zoom in on that a little bit. You can see we have a candle well above the value area, just as we indicated in the scan, as well as the watch list column. And then we also have a signal being triggered here. Notice we also have a point of control that was unbreached that has now been touched after being well supported for the earlier part of the session. Let's go ahead and look at one more of these from the examples here. We've got ARI. I'm just picking out this one down here because it also has a trend igniter signal, and you can see that that shows up on the chart. And again, we're above the value area and we have a trend igniter, and you can see that that's exactly what is showing on the watch list columns. And also scrolled through some of the examples here. So we've got another one here, FA. That one also has resist at R2 and a green trend status on the trend igniter. So let's see what that looks like. And you can see that we triggered an alert. I'm probably going to turn those alerts off so that we don't get interrupted by those. And you can see that we've got one candle here with a low way down here at the 50-day moving average, and that's what's really skewing everything here. So let me go ahead and adjust that chart here a little bit so we can see. Now we can see things more clearly. We have a candle that's fully above the value area as indicated by the watch list column and our scan signal, as well as we have a signal here for resistance at R2. That's what that little red mark is right there in that shaded area below R2. So we also want to take a look at this one here, GCO. And GCO, just like we see on the watch list columns, we have a trend igniter bullish right there, and we have bullish trend status, and that's showing up in the watch list columns too. And here's something else that I mentioned earlier in the videos series, and that there's a limit to the number of custom quotes that you can load in your custom watch list columns, and here we have reached that limit. Okay, so we've got 500 stocks in the results list, and we've got 5 different columns here. And so by the time we get down to this row right here, and I'm not going to count those, okay, but if I scroll up, you can see that there's quite a lot of stocks here that are included. But once we run out of custom quote, once we hit that limit, And you can hover over that and it will show you custom expression subscription limits exceeded. Okay, that's what it says. And that's just one of the limits. So you need to keep that in mind. If you've got too many stocks in your list, then you can go ahead and select, maybe we'll show 200 instead of 500, and rerun the scan. And then you just experiment with how many you need to use there for your limit so that you don't run out of custom quote fields. Okay, so we're back at the scan signals, and I'm going to go ahead and turn that one off so I can select another one. And this time I want to select one that is within the value area. Okay, I'm not going to show you all of these, okay, but you can experiment on your own. But clearly the descriptions here will help guide you in understanding what each of these signals are going to do. Okay, so right now we're going to be scanning for candles within the value area. We'll hit OK and then press scan. Okay, and I've gone ahead and loaded the chart with one of the ticker symbols from the list. You can see here BP, and that is listed as inside VA because that's the scan signal that we chose for this scan. You can see it also has a signal in the watch list column for value area high resistance, and that is indicated by this little wedge mark right here. You can see that the high of that bar is below the value area high, but is within that shaded area, which is what's triggering that signal, right? That signal means that the price has not penetrated the value area high, and the close is below that shaded area. And the candle itself, if you look at the wicks, is entirely within that value area. Let's take another look at this one here. Okay, value area support. Let's go ahead and look at CVE. And I've turned off alerts for this particular example so that we don't get interrupted by the alerts. And you can see, once again, it's just the opposite. Okay, we're still within the value area, wicks included, and it's also showing a support at the value area low, which is indicated by the custom watch list column. Now we're going to update the scan again. So we've got our signals here. I'm going to turn that one off. I'm going to turn on this one right here, which is touch VA high. Okay, value area high, and I want to show you what that looks like. So we're going to hit OK and then run the scan and then examine it on the chart. Okay, so I've completed that scan. You can see we've got a new set of results. I've selected this one right here, AMX, as the example on the chart. You can see that it's touching the value area high, but it's also showing support at the value area high. And that's indicated by that little cyan colored wedge mark. Okay, and so you've got that clearly displayed on the watch list column, so you can really see how the watch list columns are going to help you understand what patterns are showing up on the charts. It'll take you a little while. There's a whole lot of moving pieces here, and there's a lot of different conditions and signals that are available to you, but it's designed for flexibility. Don't get overwhelmed by the number of choices. Make sure that you learn to use this tool for your own preferences and experiment with it until you find stuff that works for you. Now we also have one that's touching a value area high with value area resistance. Let's go ahead and show you what that one looks like by selecting BAX on the chart. Go ahead and zoom in on that chart a little bit. So now we have the opposite condition right here. Okay, price has penetrated the value area high, so that candle is touching the value area high. Okay, but the value area is being formed a resistance. Because why? Because the close is below that shaded area. Okay, so that's what you've got, is that signal of touching the value area high with value area resistance. Okay, now I want to show you how to add a second filter criteria. So we're going to add another filter for the study filter. We're going to set it to 15 minute like this one. And we're going to use the scan that is the same scan as what we have here for this custom watch list column. Okay, right here, you see that volume profile signals. So we're going to use the same thing in the scan. We're going to have HTS volume profile signals for the scan. Let me go ahead and copy and paste that into the study filter and show you what that looks like. Okay, and once again, I want to begin by showing you the settings. And again, I want to make sure I update this because it's set to weekly by default, and I'm going to go ahead and move that over to day. Again, this is just making sure that the scan settings are identical to the watch list column settings. You want to make sure and check that. You'll get tripped up by that, I promise, but eventually you'll figure it out that you need to make sure your settings are lined up between everything. Now as we scroll down to the bottom, we can see the 4 different signals that are available. You can scan for resistance at value area high, support at value area high, or support at value area low, or resistance at value area low. Now we're already pretty familiar with these because we've been seeing the examples of this in the watch list columns. So let's go ahead and run a scan for resist at value area high and see how that performs. Now keep in mind what we have now are two filter criteria. We have the original one that we added, which is looking for touch of value area high, and we've added to this another scan criteria looking for value area resistance. So go ahead and hit scan and take a look at an example or two. Okay, we have our scan results completed now, and we can take a look at any one of these here. You can see BAX, which is the last example we looked at, shows up on there as it should because it has the signals present. Let's go ahead and take a look at another one from the list here. And again, same thing. We've got the candle is penetrating the value area high, so it's touching the value area high, but it's also showing resistance at that level at this current time. Okay, by now I think you're getting the idea on how you can combine the various scan criteria and select from the different signals. So now let's go ahead and remove the one that we just did for value area resistance, and I'm going to add in a scan criteria for the pivots. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and open up that editor for the study filter. And this one I'm going to replace with the volume profile PP. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that and come back to you. Okay, and there we are. We have the HTS volume profile PP, and I do want to show you how that corresponds with the watch list column. So I'll hit OK to accept that change, and then column 03 is the one that has the equivalent version of that for the watch list column. Okay, so you want to make sure that your settings are exactly the same on both, and then you go ahead and run your scan. Now I want to go ahead and show you those signals, the scan signals. So let's go ahead and open that editor and scroll down to the bottom so you can see the signals that are available for this. Okay, so we have two different scan signals available for this. We're either at resistance R2 or at support S2. Those are the two options that we have available here for this scan. And we're going to leave it at the default of resist at R2 and hit OK. Now remember what we've done here is we've retained the filter for touching the value area high, and we're also asking for the scan to pick up a resistance at R2. So think about what that entails. Think about what that candle would have to do in order to qualify. We might not find any results, so let's go ahead and run it and see what happens. Okay, and we had one result returned on our scan. Let's go ahead and check that out on the chart. And there we have it. So you have a candle that is touching the value area high, but at the same time, it is finding resistance at R2. And I had an expectation that this was going to be exceptionally rare to find this kind of a pattern, but after a while you get to understand what these patterns look like on the chart, and you'll be able to understand how to configure your scans and add multiple criteria to refine your search results and get exactly the type of pattern that you're looking for on the chart. Okay, and again, I want to keep this brief as possible, so I'm going to move on to the trend igniter scan signals, and let's go ahead and remove the requirement for the PP. So I'm going to replace the code here for the volume profile PP with the code that corresponds with the trend igniter signals. Okay, so here we have the trend igniter signals scan, okay, as identified here at the top. And you want to take a look at your settings, make sure that all of your settings here are matching the settings that you've applied to your watch list column, including the time frame, okay? And we're going to go ahead then and take a look at the signals that are at the bottom. So here you have two different signals. You've got a bull igniter signal, or you've got the bear igniter signal. Okay, so we're going to leave it at the default here and see if we can find any scan results showing the bull igniter signal. We'll hit OK and then press scan and check the results. Okay, and we only had one result there, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. And sure enough, there we go. So we've got all those qualifications here. We've got the touch of the value area high. Okay, that candle is crossing the value area high. And we also have a trend igniter bullish signal on the chart. Notice also that we have the trend status is bullish. So let's go ahead and take a look at a scan for that. Okay, so it's another type of scan that you can have, and that one is the trend igniter trend. So let's go ahead and load that into our scan and run that scan to see the results. Okay, just like I said, we have the HTS trend igniter trend loaded in the study filter. You want to go ahead and examine your settings, make sure they match your custom watch list column. And then let me go ahead and show you the signals that are at the bottom. And with this scan, we have two different signals. We can either scan for bullish trend or bearish trend. So let's go ahead and leave it at the bullish trend. Okay, that's what this one is right here. See the comment? Okay, and then we'll hit OK, and then hit scan and check the results. All right, there we go. We've got now a new set of results, and you can see that all of these have got a bullish trend in that column. That fifth column is showing the trend igniter trend status of green. And you can look at any one of these and identify that that is indeed what we have when we view the charts. So what we're looking at here is those red and green dots. Okay, you see those red and green dots? Even what we can do is we can turn on, for instance, the paint bars, make it a little bit more clear. The trend status shows up a little bit more clearly now. Okay, see, we've got red and green bars on the chart now, and that helps you to see that maybe a little bit more clearly than those dots on the chart that are tracking the moving average. Okay, again, like I said, there's a whole lot of different options that you have here. It's mind-numbing, I think, if you think about it, all the different options that you can scan for here. We got 5 different columns, we got 5 different scans, and each scan has multiple signals, at least 2 signals per scan. Some have 4 signals or more. And you've got an awful lot of flexibility here. I hope that you don't feel overwhelmed by that, but I want you to understand that that means you have flexibility. So what you want to do is fine-tune your own trading methodologies, do your back testing, find out what type of patterns that you are interested in trading, and then configure your watch list columns and your scans according to that. Okay, and that concludes the last video in the playlist. As if you watch them according to the list that I've recommended, which you can see right here, that is the scan and watch list columns. Okay, so we finished up every video in the playlist, and you should have all the information you need to be able to make use of this tool. And I wish you the best in your trading, and I really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care.